Welcome back, guys. So I want to do something a little bit different here today on the channel. Usually we talk mostly about the national touring stuff, right? The Outlaws, High Limit, and everything that goes on between those two series. And we do sprinkle in a little bit of regional, local stuff, NARC, and Central PA stuff, all that kind of things, right? Today I wanted to look at the drivers that ran sprint cars this year and look at who got at least 5 victories that are not national touring drivers. So these are going to be your local guys, your regional guys that travel around a little bit to the Midwest or to PA or whatever, and they have a pretty healthy schedule, okay? So everybody on the board here has at least 5 victories this year. In parentheses, we have how many races they ran, and then in green, we have their total earnings for the year. And then if they have a red asterisk next to their earnings, that is signifying, that driver has made the most money this year than they have in their entire sprint car racing career, according to SprintCarRatings.com. And as you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 of the 18 drivers on this board have gotten more earnings than they ever have in their entire career. A couple of guys, they were close, or maybe they ran a couple of years ago more than they did this year. But for a majority of this board, over half of the guys have won more money this year than they ever have before. But focusing mostly on the wins here. So we're going to start over here. It's a 6-way tie for 13th in the nation, taking out all of the national guys for the most wins this year. The first and second one, I actually do not have a number for them, a magnet for them. That is actually going to be Paul Nienheiser. So Paul Nienheiser, 5 wins for him this year in the 410. He got a bunch more with the Sprint Invaders 360 series. He only had 16 410 starts this year. He was able to get 5 wins, $150 in earnings there for Paul Nienheiser. The next guy, I do have a magnet on order for him. Do not quite have it yet there, but a pretty darn good year. I didn't realize how many wins that Joe B. Miller, the 51B, had this year. 5 victories, the most money he's ever made in his career in one year. That's $62,220. And 41 total starts this year for Joe B. Most of those wins coming around his home area in Missouri. Farmington comes to mind. I think he might have won a POWRi race perhaps. But Joe B. Miller, not a bad year at all for him. And especially with that red asterisk next to his name, that's pretty darn good. Now, moving into some guys that we do have numbers for. Next on the board, he also had 5 wins this year, had a red asterisk next to his numbers. $83,715 in earnings. He did run 67 races this year. That is going to be Danny Sams III. So career year for Danny Sams, got a bunch of wins during Ohio Sprint Week. Kind of jumped onto the scene this year, if you really think about it. I've heard of Danny Sams before this year, but this year he really came out and showed that he is able to contend with a lot of the fast cars in the country, and we are looking forward to seeing what he will do next year. But this year, very good year, 5 wins and over $80,000 in earnings. Now, moving up to the next guy, also with 5 wins this year, but only ran 28 races. For the last couple of years, he's really ran a very part-time schedule. In the 69K, no, it's not Darren Pittman. We're talking about Logan Wagner. So Logan Wagner, 5 wins this year, 28 races, $67,830 in earnings. Most of those starts coming at the Port Royal Speedway. He did venture out a little bit here and there, ran High Limit at Lernerville, was on the front row, I believe, one of those nights. So Logan Wagner, proving that he can go just about anywhere in Central PA or in Pennsylvania altogether and still show speed. Wish we could see him a little bit more than 28 races a year. Now, moving up to our next driver on the board here, kind of quiet because he didn't win any of these races with the bigger series, but he was the POWRi 410 champion this year, and that's Ayrton Genitin. So Genitin with 5 wins, and he's got the red asterisk next to his earnings because it was the most money he's ever made in his career with only 58 races too. So 58 races, 5 wins, and almost $100,000, $91,680. Earned this year for Ayrton Genitin. And you'd have to imagine he is licking his chops with that new announcement that came out a few weeks back about POWRi expanding their schedule, adding more money, all that stuff. Ayrton Geniton, I think, is going to be a guy to watch for when it comes to winning that Power Ride title next year. If he does decide to do the Power Ride thing again, maybe he'll do the All-Star thing if that proves to be a pretty good thing for him. So we'll see what Geniton does, but 5 wins last year, he makes it on the board. Now, the final guy with 5 wins on the board is the 55 of Trey Starks. So Starks, as we know, he got a bunch of wins in the 360, but when it comes to the 410, he only got 5. He only ran 18 races this year. He had $59,210 in earnings during those 18 races. And obviously, we all know he was able to win 2 high-limit racing features back-to-back, one at the Skagit Speedway, the other at Grays Harbor. It was an incredible week for Trey Starks, and I think if he didn't have a part failure, he would have been right there in the mix for that big win at the Skagit Speedway for the $102,000 win. But a great year for him in very, very limited starts. So Trey Starks at number 13 on the board with 5 victories. Now moving up to the 6 victory category. Two drivers, in this one with 6 wins and an asterisk next to him. He absolutely blew his numbers from the past out of the water this year. $85,550 in 53 races. And that is the 101 of Caleb Henry. I think this is also a team to watch for when it comes to that All-Star Circuit of Champions season next year. Could he potentially be a driver that joins that series full-time? I really, really do think so. That team with Kevin Osmolsky wrenching on the car, I think they are very, very fast. He ran top 5 with both the Outlaws and High Limit this year. Caleb Henry's first year in the Midwest was very, very successful. He won a $10,000 race at Fremont. He was just super good all year. Coming from California, he was very impressive. Now, the final driver with 6 wins on the board here. Also, as you see, a red asterisk, so $165,140, 73 races total. And I could put like 6 different magnets on the board, but it's Cole Macedo. He drove the Tarleton Racing 21 for a majority of the year, got 6 wins, most of his wins coming with the NARC Series. But it was definitely a career year for Cole Macedo, and now we are all excited to see what he will do next year when it comes to racing on the Outlaw Tour with Wayne Johnson and Todd Carlisle and everybody at the 2C car. We'll see if he can back up these numbers. 6 wins will definitely be tough on the Outlaw Tour, but I think he's going to be contending for top 10s a lot more often than not next year. Now, moving up to the 7-win category, which was tied for 9th on this board here of regional and local drivers when it comes to wins. 7 wins, $114,225 in just 41 races, and that is going to be Justin Sanders in the 2X car. So Sanders last year made way more money, but it did help that he won over 80 grand or whatever it was at the Dirt Cup at Skagit. So without that win, his earnings do drop off a little bit there to 114 grand. He had a ton of wins this year, way more than 7 if you count his 360 wins. I want to say he was in like the 15 range or something like that. So a good year for Sanders altogether, but we are still waiting for him to get that first national touring win out of the way. Maybe it happens next year because he showed that he can certainly get very, very close and almost do it, right? So now the other guy he's tied with down here, bottom left of the board, also with 7 wins, 59 410 starts this year, $165,725 in earnings. So it was not a career year when it comes to the earnings side of things for the driver of the 87, and that is Aaron Reutzel. So Reutzel does get quite a few wins, and much like Sanders, if you include the 360 wins, I mean, this guy, I think he's at 16 or 17 wins total on the year. He got that big high limit win during the Tuscarora 50 weekend, and it does sound like he is potentially going to be a full-timer next year with high limit. We're waiting to see if that does come to fruition or not. If it is the case, then Reutzel will be a guy that can contend for wins each and every night. On this board, though, he is tied for 9th for most wins among these drivers. Now, moving up to the 8-win category, we've got 3 drivers in this category, and I got to pull the pen back out of my pocket here because I do not have a number font for this guy. We are working on it, though. I got to kind of lean over my other whiteboards here, and it's going to be the 22. That's Brandon Spithaler. So Spithaler, 8 wins this year, 55 races, most money he's ever made in his career in one season, $59,730. I'm really hoping to get a Brandon Spithaler magnet here very soon because the guy wins enough races. He runs well. He was running very well a couple times with high limit this year. Unfortunately, with getting crashes or whatever. Spithaler, one of my favorite local drivers that we ever have when he shows up to the high limit races. But a good year for him, getting those wins with the Fast Series. Most of his wins coming in either Ohio or Western PA, but you cannot discount the fact that Brandon Spithaler is fun to watch. That is for sure. Now, another guy that he was tied with, and it's weird, all the guys in this 8-win category kind of race around the same area. We're going to throw Cap Henry on the board in the Jeff Ward Motorsports 33W. 8 wins for Cap. He has been racing for a very long time, and it was a career year when it comes to the earnings side of things. $112,535 in 56 races. He was able to get the Ohio Sprint Week Championship. He won a bunch of races during Ohio Sprint Week, got a big win as well. I want to say it was either at Fremont or Attica. He was the AFCS champion. He won a couple of championships this year along with those 8 wins. So a very, very good year for Cap Henry. And he's a guy that I wish we could see more often traveling around because he does have the talent to do it. Now, another guy that he's tied with, racing in the exact same region. These guys were neck and neck all year long. It is Cale Thomas. He was in the Jay Kaiser Racing 23. That is not a thing anymore for him. Jay Kaiser looking for a driver. But much like Cap Henry, a career year when it comes to the earnings. 8 wins, $93,715 in 60 races for Cale Thomas, excuse me. He's tied for 6th on the board. A very, very good year for Cale Thomas. I'm hoping and praying that somebody picks him up in some kind of good ride next year because this guy is the real deal. He can drive a sprint car, and he showed this year that he can compete with the best guys. I mean, he got a top 5, I believe, it was with the Outlaws at Fremont. He was quick time with High Limit at Kokomo. This guy is the real deal. Hopefully somebody notices that and he can put something together. Now, moving up to number 5 on the list, and probably not expecting to see this guy on the board. But how about it for Mark Dobmeier? Dobmeier, 9 wins this year in 38 races, $56,725 in earnings. Most of his wins coming in the state of North Dakota against the NOSA Series. A lot of wins at River Cities and some other tracks around that area. May have gotten a win at Huset's, right? I think he may have got one at Huset's. But Mark Dobmeier, guy is a legend, one of the nicest guys in the pit area, and he is a fierce competitor on the racetrack and a lot of fun to watch. He's got so many great fans, and he's got a car that is so recognizable with the Buffalo Wild Wings on the side. So Mark Dobmeier, 9 wins this year for him. Now, I got to pull the pen back out for number 4 at 10 wins on the season, and it once again is another 22, which I anticipate getting a magnet for. It is Cole Duncan. So Cole Duncan with 10 wins this year, only 33 410 starts, $56,204 in earnings for Cole Duncan. And whenever you go to Atomic Speedway, you can anticipate seeing him at the front of the field. And man, sometimes Cole Duncan just shows up to random places and is able to perform pretty well. Got a couple of wins with Fast this year, and Cole Duncan, I feel like it's a recognizable car in the state of Ohio. He finishes up 4th on the board here for this year, and we'll see what he can do next year. He's been doing it for a long time, but 10 wins is definitely very good for him. Now, up to number 3 on the list, with 11 wins on the season, and it's a career year for earnings as well, $165 in earnings in 46 410 races this year. It is going to be AJ Flick. So AJ Flick getting wins at Lernerville, getting wins at Tri-City. He got a win, I believe, or where was that one at? I got it on my list. Well, it was a Western PA Speed Week victory this year for $4,000. None of AJ Flick's wins were like huge amount of dollars when they won. They're more like $4,000, $3,000, $5,000 wins. But this guy can show up to a lot of tracks in Western PA and some in Ohio as well and be able to perform. He's pretty good at Port Royal Speedway as well. But 11 wins. AJ Flick over the last couple of years seems to find himself. If I made this board for the last 4 years, I feel like AJ Flick's name would be up here at some point in time. He just wins a lot of races each and every year, and he gets it done in that number 2 car. Ran for Bernie Stubgen a little bit this year as well, so that was cool to see. And now we move up to number 1 and number 2, both guys coming from Central PA. The first one is going to be Danny Dietrich with 12 wins on the year in 81 starts. And as you can see, a red asterisk for Danny Dietrich. He has been racing forever. $257,104. Obviously, helped out quite a bit by the Bob Weichert Memorial win with High Limit for $75,000. But Danny Dietrich, very, very good year for him with 12 victories in Central PA. Ran well with High Limit. With the Outlaws, he kind of had some bad luck here and there, but it was still a very good year, and I'm sure he is happy with how things went ending up number 2, and I think number 4 overall in the nation, maybe number 3 overall in the nation this year when it comes to sprint car wins. And as you can probably imagine, you already probably know who was number 1 on the board. It was Anthony Macri this year with 15 total wins, and was not his best as far as the earnings go, $369,600 in 85 races. He was able to get a win with High Limit at Texas, got a bunch of wins as well in Central Pennsylvania. As we all know, I don't think he got any huge wins at Port Royal. He didn't win the Tuscarora 50. He didn't win the Weikert. So those big races, he did get that $22,000 to win race at Port Royal, the Klein Tribute race. So that was his biggest win of the year for $22 grand. But when you get 15 wins, that money is going to add up. Not a career year by any means for Anthony Macri. I believe that was last year, right? Or was it the year before when he had 24 or whatever it was and $400,000 in earnings? But this was a very good year as well for Anthony Macri, and he continues to be one of the best sprint car drivers in the entire country. So let me know what you guys think about this type of video. Did you like it? Getting to highlight a little bit more of the guys that are outside of that national touring circle with the Outlaws and High Limit. I kind of like doing this. I got the magnets for it. We're going to be ordering more. We need a Spit Hauler. We need a Cole Duncan. We need a Joe B. Miller and a Paul Nienheiser. We're working on getting more magnets. Let me know your guys' thoughts on this video down in the comment section below. Also, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and we'll talk to you guys again here soon.